Hey tea heads, this is Don from Mayleaf. In this video, should you be rinsing your teas? In this video, I'm going to be going through some of the theories about why you should be rinsing teas, and we're going to test a couple of them out. This video is going to go onto the Tea Masterclasses playlist. If at any point in time you enjoy this video, then please give the video the thumbs up. The more thumbs in the air, the more tea videos are going to come your way. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, then go click that button. So it's Sunday here in London, and I checked out my YouTube channel, and there was a question from a viewer asking me to explain why and how you rinse teas. In China, there's an expression that the tea wash or the tea rinse is the tea for your enemies. But why is that? What are the theories? Before we get into that, let's quickly go through how you rinse your teas. You would be pouring the same temperature water as you would be brewing at a relatively large height to agitate the leaves up, and then you would be waiting 5 to 10 seconds and then pouring off that wash and just discarding it. And then your leaves are ready for the first infusion. So some of the theories as to why you rinse your tea. The first theory is pretty self-explanatory and makes a lot of sense. It's just purely for tea appreciation. If you rinse your teas, then you have a tea wash that you can pour into your cups and teaware that will warm the teacups and also release some of the aroma of the tea. So you can start to excite the nose of your guests, including yourself. So it's just purely for tea appreciation. That makes sense. The second reason is to warm up your teaware. Now, if I pour from a kettle into a cold gaiwan or a cold teapot with the leaf inside, then some of the water temperature is going to be used to warm up the teaware, the material itself. And that means that the brewing temperature will drop and you will not have a consistent brew. So if you pour hot water over your leaf beforehand, then you are in effect warming your teaware. Now, some people will also pour hot water directly into an empty cup before they put the leaves in, including myself. That's also something that you can do. But certainly, if you don't want to do that, then rinsing your teas helps to warm up the teaware for an even brew. That makes sense too. The third reason is specifically related to aged teas. So aged teas, especially cooked PuErh teas, may have a kind of musty smell from storage or from fermentation. And if you get a relatively low quality cooked PuErh, then it may also have a kind of fishy or dried squid aroma. Tea sellers may refer to it as a marine air aroma, but really we're talking about kind of a fishy smell. And that usually comes from relatively poorly made cooked PuErh teas. But if you've got that tea and you want to drink it, then pouring hot water over the leaves and rinsing it 1 or 2 times will help to release some of those aromas, and you'll have a much nicer tasting tea. The fourth reason for rinsing teas that we are often told is you need to clean your tea. Right, so what are we cleaning it from? There are a few things. The first thing that people talk about is pesticides, and that's something that we need to address. Pesticides are generally sprayed on lower quality crops that are at lower altitude and that are picked in the wrong seasons, in kind of late spring and summer. The reason for that is late spring and summer and lower altitude has more likelihood of insects and pests that will be eating the leaves and destroying the crops. Higher altitude, less pests. That's one of the reasons why high altitude tea is more revered than lower altitude tea. But really, this boils down to you finding suppliers that you can trust that are buying teas at the right season from responsible tea farmers, and then getting the teas tested as well. Also, pesticides tend to go in through the roots and up into the leaves. So actually rinsing the tea leaves is not going to have a major effect. So I don't think that pesticides should be part of your concern when considering whether or not to rinse your leaves. The second reason for rinsing leaves that's often talked about is just removing impurities and dirt. Now, sure, tea leaves will, in the process of being produced and stored and traveling, will have some impurities, but we're talking about very minimal impurities. But that is something that you can rinse and wash away. And the third thing is the broken leaves and the fannings and the tea dust. Now, especially if you're taking it from a PuErh cake, or you've got tea that is not such high quality and not really clear full leaves, there will be some dust, there will be some fannings, and you want to try and pour those away. The reason for that is the larger the surface area, in other words, the smaller the leaf fannings or dust, the more likelihood that you're going to bring bitter notes into the tea. So I'm going to pull the camera around. We're going to take a look at this guy one. We're going to pour some hot water in, and you're going to see some of this tea dust, fannings and impurities come away. This is some cooked PuErh. I'm just going to pour some boiling water from a nice height here, and you can immediately see this kind of frothiness that develop. Now, don't get obsessed with froth and whether or not it's bad, because actually a lot of the froth after the tea wash is due to saponins and pectins and sugars in the tea, so it's not something bad. But all of this stuff you can easily pour away just by doing this. This is what makes guy one very simple. And now I'm just going to be pouring this with quite a large space to allow for a lot of the tea dust to leave into the gong dao bei. There we go. That's an example of a tea wash. Now we're going to bring the camera around and we're going to check out this infusion and compare it to the first proper infusion. So this is the tea wash, and don't forget I put it through a fine filter when I went from the Gai one to the gong dao bei. So it should have picked up a lot of the dust and fannings, but let's just pour this in here, and I'm going to pour this away, and now I'm going to immediately do my first infusion of this cooked PuErh. So again, go from height. It still has a little bit of bubbles, but the bubbles are slightly larger, less of this kind of fine bubbles, which tends to mean that it's more about the saponins and the pectin rather than any kind of impurities. Right, so this is the first proper infusion, again going through a filter. Let's see, this is interesting. I have no idea the results of this myself, but let's see if we notice any difference. Right, I'm going to try and bring this into the camera. So this one here is just brewed. This is the one that you would normally be drinking. And this one here is the wash. And I can quite clearly see from here, I hope that you can, that this one here is definitely cloudier. Okay, it's a lighter color as you'd expect, because this one, the leaves have started to open up, so they're ready to extract a lot more. But if we try to ignore the color difference a little bit, from my eye here, this one definitely looks a little bit cloudier. So I do think that there is some validity to the claim that rinsing or washing your teas helps to get rid of some of those fannings and the tea dust, which will mean that you have a smoother, less bitter brew and clearer as well. Okay, the fifth reason for rinsing your teas, which is often talked about, is activating the tea leaves. In China, they have a horrible expression, well, there's a horrible translation, which is moisturizing the tea leaves, which doesn't make any sense to me. I imagine putting moisturizing cream on leaves. The idea is that for certain teas, especially ball-rolled oolongs like this, so your kind of classic ball-rolled oolongs from Taiwan or from China, that because they're all tightly rolled up, it takes a while for the water to unravel them and open them up, and therefore for them to extract properly. And if you rinse or wash the teas beforehand, what you're doing is kind of activating the leaves. You're opening them up. You're taking the ones that are a little bit tighter, giving them a chance to open up. That means that your brew is going to be more even. That's the theory. The other idea is that if you've opened up your leaves briefly with the tea wash, then it means that your steepings can be at a shorter time. So you can do quicker steepings, and as we all know, longer steepings has more of a potential to release bitter notes into the tea. So shorter steepings means you're going to get the aromas and less of the bitterness. This is a theory which I've never actually tested out myself. So now I'm going to set up this Gong Fu set, and we're going to try it out, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we've got some Alishan cream here, which is a lightly oxidized Taiwanese oolong. The reason why I've picked that is because It's ball rolled, so it's going to take longer to open up. And also because it's a green oolong, it has more tendency to have bitterness. So this one is the leaf that I've already washed, and you can see that the leaf has started to open up, and I can compare that to the one that I have not. So this is the dry Alishan cream. So what we're going to try to do is get an even brew between the two so I can genuinely taste the difference. So this one is going to take a bit longer. Right, let's pour some into the leaf that has already been washed. And I will also pour from a nice height to get the leaves moving around. That will help to even up the brew as well. Okay. You know what? I'm going to pour it without the filters, just see if we can pick up any more of this cloudiness. I don't expect to see too much because this is a high quality oolong and therefore shouldn't have much dust floating around, but it's worth doing this extra comparison. So I can see the color of this liquor now, and I've got to try and get it so that this one is going to be about the same color. I think it needs a little bit longer. So this is the extra steeping time that we're talking about that may, and we'll find out, release some more of the bitter notes. My suspicion is that this is going to be more of a factor when you're dealing with Western style brewing where your steeping times are longer generally, and it might not have such an effect here. But let's see. It's interesting to test. Okay, so this is the one that was washed, and this one is the one that was not. Let's see if we can see any difference in the color. Washed one, not washed one. I did a pretty good job, I think, of evening out the brews so that we can see that they're about the same color. I don't really see any difference in terms of clarity, and that's what I mean. If you've got good tea in the first place, especially with ball rolled oolongs, you don't want much dust and fanning. That would be a bad sign anyway. So if you've got good tea, then that's not such a factor. Okay, let's taste. Floral, creamy, that Jinchuan creaminess and butteriness. Very nice, very clean, and has enough of a bite to the end of it to give it satisfaction. Definite discernible difference. I wouldn't, certainly it's got nothing to do with bitterness, but this tea tastes weaker. Even though it's the same color, I would say it's the same strength. This one has definitely got more complexity and more of the chemicals and the compounds in here have been extracted because the leaf has had a chance to open up, and therefore the water has been able to extract more of the flavor. So even though we've got the same color, this is rich and thicker mouthfeel. This is much thinner. Definitely very, very big difference. And the next brew of this will be perfect. So that's not to say that there's anything wrong with drinking the tea wash, but in terms of tea appreciation, this one's definitely weaker than this one. But no bitterness in either. And as I said, I think that this would more show itself if you brewed Western style, where you're having a smaller amount of leaf and therefore you have to steep for longer periods of time anyway. Okay, the last reason that people talk about rinsing teas is to remove some of the caffeine. This is something that's been spread amongst the tea industry a lot. This is something that I would ignore because really, if you want to reduce the caffeine, the studies that have been done show that you would need to rinse the tea for about 30 seconds in order to reduce the caffeine by about 10%. And you'd have to rinse the tea for a minute in order to throw away 20% of the caffeine. So that's not a huge reduction, it's a little bit, but by the time you're getting to 1 minute brew, 1 minute rinses, you're actually throwing away a lot of the nice flavor of the tea. So I don't think that you should be too concerned about that, or that should be part of the consideration when rinsing teas. Okay, I hope that answers the viewer's question. That's it, tea heads. If you made it to the end of this video, then please give the video the thumbs up. Check out our YouTube playlist and let us know if there are any videos that you would like us to make. If you're ever in London, then come and visit us in Camden to say hi and taste our wares. If you have any questions or comments, then please fire them over. Other than that, I'm Don May from Mayleaf. Thank you for being part of the revelation of true tea. Stay away from the tea bags, keep drinking the good stuff, and spread the word, because nobody deserves bad tea. Bye.